Okay, there you go. On here. Okay, cool. Yep. So, how you doing? This is I don't know. I'm not sure if we need to do introductions at this point, but yeah, this is. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Simon St. Laurent. I'm an editor at O'Reilly Media. Long ago, I wrote a book on cookies, so I've been in kind of this blocking conversation for a really long time.
Uh,
Yeah, it's all my fault. No.
right. Yeah. So I actually researched it, and this cookie book, the cookie books came out in 1998. So are you claiming responsibility?
No, not really.
Be a technical book that came out in 1998. Because if so, you are awesome. That's like amazing. Like a tech book normally doesn't last past 3 years. That's amazing.
It really didn't last past 3 years. But it's kind of funny because, like, when I was writing about it, it
Yeah.
was a technical subject, and I even used VB script in that book. I showed how to use
Wow.
cookies in server-side JavaScript. I showed how to use cookies in like all of these things that are gone.
Oh, wow.
And so I don't think anybody is still using that book. If they are, I'm very sorry. Uh, but at the same time, I was trying to figure out, like, what does this stuff mean, and what happens when you start, sending requests that have cookies to other places.
Mm.
And I was pretty much an optimist when I wrote that book.
Mm.
Clearly, I was wrong. So
Well, it was still a good time to be an optimist, right? I mean, like the web
yes,
didn't have spamming as much as it did. I mean, spam was getting a little bit bad back then, but it wasn't really out of control. You didn't see I think the worst offender was people putting frame ads in like frame sets, and then linking to like CNN for the content, and that was just like someone had to go to court against that and say, hey, don't put frames around our
yes.
content. So
All this exciting ways to pop out of the frame for content developers, and
right.
yeah. And I also worked at the first place, the place that claimed to have created the first banner ad, the AT&T thing for Wired.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't there for the occasion, so I've just sort of been a neighbor to all of these things along the way.
Right. Right. Well, like one of the reasons why we're talking today is like I think we're the news last week. I'm just minding my own business, and people were writing blog posts about this iOS 9, which hasn't it's no big secret. I don't think that there was a beta program for iOS
Right.
9, and then so it was coming down the pipe. And then all of a sudden it actually came out, and then all of a sudden I was articles all over the place about how there's ad blockers software. So let me just break it down for people who don't know. Is that new iOS for the smart devices from which aren't laptops for Apple. The browser for the iPhone, the browser for the iPad, you can actually install like a third-party application onto your phone. You don't really do any plugins or anything like that. Just like you download it, the phone will recognize it. So you just have to go to settings, go to Safari, and then if you have it installed like an ad blocking app that you have already bought, you just swipe yes or no or whatever, and it'll turn it on. Oh, if you swipe yes to turn it on, and so then you go back to surf the web, and you'll notice like there aren't any ads. Like all those annoying ads are there depending on that. So is that technically how it works?
Yeah, there's something interesting underneath it, which is the way that Safari is getting that data is basically just a JSON file. And you can, tinker with that however you want. I think so far we've mostly seen, sites are creating their own blacklists, whitelists, that kind of stuff. But if you look at the JSON format, you can turn on and off all kinds of stuff. So you can do like regular expression matching on URLs. You can do selective blocking based on the content type. So you can say, I don't want any web fonts. You can turn off images. You can turn off scripts. Eric Meyer wrote about how it's kind of the time machine taking us back to 1995.
Right.
And, I remember when people turning off JavaScript was a real thing. It happened.
Right.
At this point, I think people don't do it because the web without JavaScript is kind of, bland. and some sites don't work at all.
Right.
But suddenly it's possible for somebody who really knows nothing of what they're doing and just says, "Stop bothering me. I want to use the web in the most minimalist way possible, and I'll use apps when I want something more exciting."
Right.
They can switch off all the craziness we've been adding.
Right. And I mean, so I want to get back to it, but like, my experiences from a couple of days, like I installed was it Crystal app, which is the Crystal blocker.
Right.
I installed that because one, it was like the, I guess, most popular one. It had the most reviews. I knew nothing about it. And I tell you, it's been beautiful. I've enjoyed going to sites that normally have, they're not modals, but they like pop up from the bottom and then they take up a third of your browser space, which is like, and I have a Retina iOS, and I'm 6'7", I'm a tall guy. I can handle an iPhone 6 Plus, and so when it takes up a third of my phone, that's a huge chunk of real estate that it's taking up. And so for it to go away, or for the ad banners to go away, I can, it's not just going back to 1995. It's going back to like when the first iPhone came out, right? Almost in a sense that, right. It's just like, wow, I can actually start browsing the web. Like, this is the promise that Steve Jobs made on stage. Like, hey, you can have the web on your phone again. And so I felt like, wow, this is great. And I'm actually excited because, there's a whole, like, you actually bookmark your websites and have a thumbnail on your, iOS, device as like it looks like an app. It'll launch the website. I'm like, well, I might actually want to do this more often if I can actually, get to the content faster. But there's a dangerous side, right, for the publishers with that, right?
Yes. I mean, so I'll admit I don't actually have any iDevices right now that I'm using, so I can't try it out. I've just read about it. What I have done, though, is I've been running Privacy Badger, the Electronic Frontier Foundation's. It's not an ad blocker exactly. It just turns off stuff that's tracking you,
right?
Which turns out to function as a really great ad blocker.
Mm-hmm.
I still see ads on like A List Apart. I still see ads once in a while,
right.
But like the stuff on like Go Comics that would take over half the screen, somehow it just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. I think, the advertising model has gotten crazier and crazier over time. I remember getting really excited with pop-up block, finally making it possible to use the browser again.
Right.
It did break a few other things that kind of depended on pop-ups for their interface, and we all had to get used to being stuck in the box again. And I've had weird conversations with people who do things like, oh, I run an advertising auction site. We have all of these transactions in no more than 600 milliseconds because that would be terrible if we had to delay something. And I'm like, well, you're not delaying it, but you're sending them this giant pile of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the priorities aren't quite right there. So I'm, looking forward to a less cluttered web. I'm also suspecting that it's not going to last that long.
Yeah.
Part of it is that so much of the ad blocking relies on ads coming from third parties.
Okay.
And so people have mostly avoided what's called the native model, where the site that's posting the advertising actually hosts the advertising.
Right.
It's easier just to be able to point someplace else and say, you do this. But it's not that hard to rearrange things so that the ads all come through the main channel.
Right.
There's still a lot of things you can do with the URL blocking approaches. There's still a lot you can do to reduce the volume. But I suspect we're just in a phase of, it looks like the battle has been won this week, but it's going to change again next week.
Right. Well, and I just want to just put it out there, like, so just by blocking the ads, what's the worry part? The bad part is that for the content publishers, and what Zellman was, in his blog post was making that point, is like the independent publisher who relies on not just a service that will run the ads from a third party, service, web app or web service, will, they'll take care of finding the right ad and putting it right there to your content, and just does all that stuff on the fly. And because and all this revenue stream that they rely on, just went away, right? Just gone. So
Well, I don't know that it really went away. I think we're probably talking about like 20% of users, which is a big chunk. It really hurts people who are on the margin, and the margins of these things aren't that big.
Right.
I think that model is just going to have to change.
Yeah.
I think the folks who are providing the advertising services are really scrambling. I know that some content publishers are deeply unhappy. There are sites that have been big enough historically for the advertising revenue to really make a big difference in their revenues. On the other hand, I'll admit that I'm tired of clickbait too. And, you know, just sort of the sheer raw, let's get as many eyeballs in front of it as possible. And if 0.01% of them click on it, it's basically the exact same model as spam. So that I'm hoping disappears, at least for a while. I'm less happy about the effect on some of the sites that are doing advertising, but doing it in what I think of as a sane way. So like Daring Fireball is a classic. You know, it's a totally Apple-oriented site. It has one ad on it a day. I don't know whether people are going to whitelist that, or how that's going to work. A list apart is pretty similar with their little pop-up in the corner. It's hard to know. I suspect in the long run, the model is going to change. I mean, so I work at O'Reilly Media. We used to do a lot more advertising supported content. We had the O'Reilly Network. It was a lot of blog posts and a lot of articles. But even though we're totally awesome, we didn't get enough traffic to support that advertising model. And so we've shifted to other models that still provide for sponsorship, but they provide for it in ways that don't involve banner ads and pop-ups and popovers and all of those other fun things. It's less intrusive. Maybe it's less effective, at least online. But you know, supplementing it with things in the real world makes it more effective.
Right. So this is more like sponsored, not content, but just more not ad banners, but like other sponsorship, like I would assume like a sponsored package or like a month of time or something like that.
Yeah, we tend to do things that are like reports or conference sponsorships. So one of the more recent ones, we did a book on Nginx, and Nginx like sponsored the early release for 2 months, so that I mean they have an obvious benefit to people getting more documentation on Nginx. That was a nice one. But it also meant that the Nginx, you know, logo was more prominent and the story was visible. It's a really different kind of collaboration, though. It means you have to talk to each other like on a regular basis. You can't just say this banner company is going to handle all the impressions and they'll do a quick inspection of text to see what should go there. So,
and I think that's where the pain point comes is for the publishers. Not only do they have to worry about their set and forget it model going away, is that now it's like, okay, like the same person will like, oh, well, I have to adapt. And so, but my adaptive, process is now I have to actually spend more time away from creating content, right? So if their model is, writing stuff that it really, there's not many sponsors or sponsors wouldn't like, it's not a good match. They all of a sudden have to become salespeople and have a sales staff or, have that, acquire the skills to do that. And so it'll take more time away from writing content, or they have to pay someone to do that type of work. And so that means less time developing great content. Right.
I think there are going to be two kinds of people this really hurts. So one is sites that just have massive volume, and the ad flow is so huge that it basically makes their revenue numbers work. Those folks don't have this problem because they have salespeople. It's just a matter of there's less money. Oh no. They probably can negotiate the figuring out how to restructure things. The folks that I worry about are the single person shops or the small shops where you have the same person trying to juggle all of these different jobs,
Mm-hmm.
because for them, life just got much, much more complicated.
Right.
It's one thing to write content and have the people who can benefit from advertising on that find you.
Right.
It's a totally other thing to have to go talk to them and say, well, do you want to have this partnership? We could do this thing. It's a vastly more intensive sales model.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think a lot of those people, it's going to be really hard.
Right.
They may be able to find technical workarounds, like shifting to having their server be the location the ads at least go through.
Right.
But it's going to be awkward for a while.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be definitely like trying to do some quick fixes, like you said, for hosting it, or trying to mask, where the ads are coming from through regular, try to hide behind or poke, find the loopholes in the regular expressions. That people set up, and then, but also I feel like it's going to be like finding ways to make the ads like content, right? So you're going to have like, I see a lot of bloggers now that during Fireball will actually just say, hey, thanks my sponsor, who's our RSS feed sponsor, one who reads RSS feeds. I don't know, but
I still do, but yeah,
I still do too. Actually, I do want to say, like, yeah, Net Newswire has come back as an app for macOS app and iPhone app, and I'm just so happy that they're back, because I'm actually like reading RSS feeds again, so it's pretty nice. But I'm not sure what app you're using though. But are you using an app or just...
Yeah, well, I'm stuck in Feedly, which I really don't like. So.
Yeah, so I tried to make Feedly work, and it was not working out. So yeah, Net Newswire just came back like 2 weeks ago or something like that, and so I've been really happy with them. And then so Darren Fireball just comes out with a thank you for a sponsor. He actually lists the sponsor as a blog post, but for that month or week or whatever, he'll have maybe the ad for the sponsor at the bottom of his post if you read his RSS feed. And so, which last time I checked was like it's like $2,000 to $10,000 depending on per week or something like that. Or it's crazy amount of money. So, but but I think his audience is more tech focused. I'm not sure how many people, a general blog about food, I'm not sure how many people will, want RSS feeds. I don't want to make, I'm not being judgy. Well, I'm just saying. But yeah, but then you get like to, a blog post as an ad, like say, hey, here's this ad about Pillsbury, right? And so there's this whole thing about that. So where people are actually like, hey, and I know like in the social media market, there's IZEA is a company that just does social media marketing. And so they're out there, like you have a tweet, you can do special tweets for ads, you can do Instagram, Snapchat, you can do all sorts of things with social media. So whereas hey, you got like 10 personal tweets from a celebrity, and all of a sudden the next one is about Pillsbury Doughboy or whatever. So
right.
So so it's gonna be like more as ad as content, I think, in the future.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways that works. I mean, the product placement thing can get a little annoying. I still kind of enjoy the Wayne's World take on it with the little yellow pill and things like that, where they just wove it into the movie to make fun of it. But actually, by doing that, they were advertising it. But okay. On a blog level, I mean, it's one of the weirder things was that I was looking for a particular computer last year. Then I went looking for reviews, and it seemed that the company had given a lot of the computers to a lot of people who didn't really know anything about computers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which on the one hand was really cool. On the other hand, made for some really strange reviews that didn't really help much.
Right.
It's hard to make those kinds of matches work. Mm-hmm. In an ideal world, I would love to have some of that automatic stuff working without being as intrusive as it's become, which actually kind of brings us to one of the funnier parts of this, which is that it's easy to see this as Apple kind of striking against Google and Google Ads without really having to say they're doing it.
Right.
In Google Ads, I don't think they really pioneered the unobtrusive ad, but they certainly made an art form of it for a while. Mm-hmm. However, their DoubleClick subsidiary was not so unobtrusive and still isn't. So it's really a mix of different models that have basically come along to hit readers on the head for a long time, and now seem to be hitting content creators on the head.
Right, and I love Google Ads. I just not I'm not a big fan of ads, but I just there's just they have so much content, so much data from ads and what's out there combined with their Google catalog is that they you actually do a lot of great research. I think that's one of the things that writing great copy is that you actually research the keywords that are out there, and so it's really good if you're if you want to research what's trending or whatnot. So. But yeah, and also like I think Google didn't pioneer like ads or ad banners.
Right.
They pioneered like making it automated, right? So and the process so you could bypass the sales guy. And I remember like in the 2000s, like for a client, I had to they wanted ad banners, and I had to call up Yahoo, some guy I have no idea where he was,
Right.
and I'm just like, hey, I need to buy ads for this page on your directory, which is like when we still had Yahoo. When Yahoo still has a directory,
right?
So yeah, so it was just kind of crazy. So Google's done a lot of things to automate that process, and it's definitely since then. But yeah, so I can see like where I think that the tricky part would be if Apple came out and said like, yeah, you can you can block Google's ads, but all our ads are definitely going to be you can't block them. But those are for native.
Yeah, you can't block the ads. That is definitely true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's partly a battle of titans. It's also partly probably necessary reaction to an advertising world that's gone too far.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally appreciate Calvin and Hobbes. Don't get me wrong. I love being able to read it to my kids. But trying to read it on the Go Comics site was really exciting. It had nothing to do with Calvin and Hobbes.
Right.
I marvel at Weather Underground sometimes, and even blogs that I like and respect frequently have that kind of collection of clickbait at the bottom of the pages, and it must make them money for it to be there. I just wow.
Yeah. But and then let's see this.
Yeah. Actually, the other.
But also, I think what did you say? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, but I also want to say, like, for the past like year and a half, like you could not go to, from what I could see at a web conference without talking about performance or performance budgets and whatnot. And so one of the big things was like, talking about from a mobile point, like how much, kilobytes you have for like when someone punches in your website to go view it before, they have to go back to the satellite or tower and pull down your data. And so by having the ad blocker, we actually we save people a lot of time, a lot of data usage. It's so I think it's a win for them, just in terms of performance. That you're not downloading all this crud onto your phone.
Yeah, the fun question there. I mean, I think it's an obvious win for mobile users to be able to block both the mobile ads and the tracking stuff.
Yeah,
because the tracking stuff means that you're hitting the tower all the time. So those, I think make people's data plans feel a lot happier. The other part that I have really mixed feelings about is the font side. I remember the flash of unformatted text. I was happy when it went away. Now I'm very happy to see it returning. Because I have this old phone that I still use, and I've timed it. It can take 2.5 minutes for a site to start.
Right.
Eventually, they realize there's a disaster because people aren't finishing loading the pages, and they do something to fix it.
Right.
But and I also think about, I think it was Oakley who built that completely insane site with like 87 megabytes of graphics, and they got a lot of shame for that.
But it looked great. It looked great, though. Yeah,
It looked awesome, sure. If I could ever download it. And I think somebody calculated like the cost of downloading that using like using roaming time and roaming data in Canada or something. And it was like $250 to load the site, which is also kind of an indictment of how we price cell phone data. But the reality is we've gone too far. And I don't love this as a solution to bringing it back, but as a short-term fix, it's going to be really popular. And I hope that finally drives home that performance is more than a checkbox.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely is. I think it's, I think it's just a win-win. I think, what gets me is that this is the first like major design crisis since, design for mobile became an issue. Like it was like, mobile uses, passes desktop usage now. And, we're humming along trying to get, building apps for the different mobile devices, and we also still have like the native apps going along. And so I felt like there's this divergent. And so I felt like, no offense, but I'm in Austin. So it's like, for the most part, there's a really strong native app culture in the startup scene here. And so I'm just trying to get native apps going. And so just to hear like this blow up about mobile web browsing ad blocking software, just like, whoa, it took me just by surprise. Like, oh, this is the thing people are actually concerned. So the mobile web is still a very major concern with a lot of people. And so I thought, which is kind of a naive thing to say, and I gotta admit that, but just like, for all the things to be worried about, I didn't feel that it feels like weird. Ad blocking is a major concern to a lot of people.
Well, I think it depends on kind of what context you're frequently using your phone in. One thing I was talking to a friend who uses Facebook and complained that they just don't follow the links anymore.
Yeah.
That go out of Facebook because they just got bombarded with ads.
Yeah.
And I asked if they were on a phone or on a desktop, and they said both.
Mm-hmm.
And it just wasn't enough better, even when they had like a hardwired connection.
Oh yeah, I totally understand that, because I would like if a friend posts something and if it's not from YouTube or a trusted news source, I just don't go to it because I don't know what garbage is going to be on the other end, right?
Right. Well, this is where I've been really happy to have Privacy Badger on the browser, where I do most of my Facebook stuff.
Yeah.
I suddenly can go look at those things and then look at the little counter on Privacy Badger telling me that there were 37 different tracking things on this site. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there should be 37 of anything, but yeah. So I think one way or another, this is kind of a reset moment for the web.
Mm.
I don't know if Eric's quite right that we're going all the way back to 1995. I kind of like your version of going back to the early iPhone days a little better. It's also interesting to me to see, like, the iOS devices are not actually that gigantic a share of the web usage, but the response to it has been, this is a catastrophe.
Right.
And so I think they definitely have a impact greater than their sheer number of users. That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. I think it's just, I think it's going to be, I think I like your idea of a reset, because I feel like it's, the system has been gamed.
Yes.
And I feel like it's time to change it up. And so, I keep an ear to the ground for all the affiliate marketing people and, in the search engine market. And so just to hear them whenever there's a rollout with Google search, logarithms, it's always good to, like, it's always a panic, roll across the phone. So, but yeah, so I would say, like, the advent of the iPhone as a big, bomb for web design, for being mobile. And then, I felt like another bomb, like I thought it was a bomb, when Google said, hey, if you're not mobile friendly, then we really don't care,
Yeah.
I felt like, wow, they're actually dictating, your website, actually holding it back. So.
I think we're going to see more of that. I mean, in some ways, Apple is letting other people do the dictation for them. They just opened the door for it. But Google has been doing this kind of thing for a long time. Facebook does odd things. Like, it doesn't keep me from linking to sites, but I certainly get different kinds of presentations, and it's sort of odd to see what they're doing. And I keep trying to ask myself, is this deliberate, or is this just their code doesn't know how to speak to it?
What do you mean by presentation?
Oh, like the classic. So yeah, I linked to an article, and it puts up the picture, the headline, and a chunk of text.
Right.
It used to be that I could pick from any of the images on the site.
Right.
Now it seems to do like every third image or something, especially random. Sometimes I can't choose the image. I think that's the site creator deciding how to talk to Facebook.
Right.
The amount of text that I can include in the description really varies from site to site, and how much I can change things.
Okay.
And so it's this funny place where I'm not thinking that Facebook is trying to shut down my right to speak or anything. They've got other ways to do that. But I look at it and I wonder, is there an algorithm behind this that's driving traffic, or that, the people creating these sites should be paying more attention to figure out how they're being presented?
Right.
Like even with O'Reilly sites, I didn't really want to present O'Reilly content with just a giant O'Reilly logo as the image.
Right.
So, we did things to shift it around so you had more choices than that. But I don't know, how much of that is default behavior. So basically, as we have these giants, what they consider the right default behavior matters a lot more.
Right.
And Apple just added a new tweak, because instead of making it default behavior, they said, hey, you can have optional behavior. And in a way that was really popular.
Right. Well, I mean, it's surprising in a way. Like, again, I'm like, I was go back to my naivete about it, but just the fact that your an ad blocking software app is #1 within a day is kind of iOS 9 launching is kind of crazy. I think, and it's still popular. So I think it's kind of crazy. But I felt from my question I was asking you. Dang it. So, yeah, but yeah. So like, yeah, and my concern is also like, I'm not too concerned about, what Apple, like having ad blocking software. I am concerned about Facebook and this walled garden. I mean, it's this old discussion that we've had for a while. Is just that, and let me just back up, because your discussion about the photo when you post something on Facebook, where the fact that I'm still on Facebook after 10 years or so, it just kind of amazes me. But
me too.
Yeah, it's for like it's no Friendster or MySpace for sure. But yeah, so I feel like we at Austin, we have a lake called Lake Travis, and so we've had a drought, and so it's been it was really need to be filled up, and all of a sudden we had like a month of rain, and so some web builders and I we got together, and actually Dave Rupert did the main JavaScript for it, but we just said like, is the lake full yet.com, and so you just go to the website and it'll just tell you like how far it is from being full in terms of depth or volume, depending on what you want to see it, and then I spent some time just over a weekend, because I was just like, want to learn and tweak things out. And so I actually like went to the Open Graph and try to figure out what image gets placed where and stuff like that. And so, because I heard like, oh, someone's going to put this on Facebook, and that's how they heard about it. So I want to make sure it looks pretty good, because as it is, it's just like yes, no, is it like full yet? And so it's just so it's going to get you like nothing going on. If someone will link to it on Facebook, they'll just get like this boring text in the box, which no one wants to see. And I did Google Analytics, and it just turns out like, we got a ton of traffic because it was raining up for a month. People really want to know if the lake got full, and half our traffic is from Facebook, and I would not know. I would not know if it wasn't for Google Analytics. And then if it's from Twitter, which I guess not. I hope Twitter stock price goes up, because then that means more people will be using it. But I love Twitter, even more. But I can actually track, Twitter and find out where people are linking to and from a certain thing. But Facebook, unless there's something I'm mistaken, like I just can't figure out who's linking, unless I'm the most popular guy on Facebook. I can't figure out who's linking to what to this website. And so that's what I'm concerned about. And I know, because I spent I got the right image. I just put it in there and like make sure it looked pretty sweet when someone would stroll up in the timeline. So make sure it looked pretty awesome. And stats went through the roof once people were sharing that. But yeah, it's just I feel like the walled garden is still a concern with me, because who knows what great content. I mean, we're all basically having our own personal blog that's private, but maybe we're like writing some great content. You put up some great links all the time, which is I don't know how you do it. You're a robot posting great links on Facebook. but yeah, so like once you're gone, it's not like it also probably me still have access. We actually just had, I'm kind of rambling here, but I just want to just kind of finish my point, is that we just had the Content Strategy Summit, our online conference just wrapped up today. And so our last talk was from Facebook, and talking about, they just had a feature like what to do when you die,
right?
Who's in charge of your Facebook account. And so if you don't have that or whatnot, or if you choose to close it out, your content is gone, forever, So, so I feel like, wow, it's not going to be archived in archive.org. It just wiped out. So I feel like that's still more of this ominous, not threat. I mean, this is like, it's more of this like library of great content just that won't be accessed. I mean, I'm not, GeoCities wasn't a great, mecca of a library, but there's still some great content on there. And so now that it's gone, I just,
Well, there is NeoCities, but yes.
Yeah. So
I'm totally with you. I think it's been a great few years for walled gardens.
Yeah.
I think we're watching Apple, Google, and Facebook all in different ways try to increase that. We've seen Twitter make some starts that direction, especially with their API stuff. I just couldn't really figure out what they were trying to do. But the good news is that you can still just go set up a website. Is the lake full yet?
Right.
The bad news is it's less and less clear what you can do to get that in front of an audience that isn't all pouring through these walled gardens. So I still have hope. I'm still excited about all the things we can do on the web.
Right.
I'm actually still excited about a lot of things we can do with apps. It just feels more and more like these things are going through a much narrower set of channels.
Right.
And when the web first opened, it was just kind of everywhere. Maybe we could bring back web rings. No, let's not bring back web rings.
Oh, we totally should, man. Totally should. Speaking of sponsorship, that was I worked on a High Five, and we did the sponsorship. We had High Five was a part of a design network with Hotwires at the time for like a month. I don't know how long it lasted, but yeah. So like it was just a way to get more readers and share readers, and I'm down for that.
Yeah, it had kind of a collaborative feel to it.
Yeah.
We could do with more of that. I guess it also kind of went away because it got gamed really horribly.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's the thing. It just feels like every time we come up with some new cool way to work together, we game it, and then we don't want to use it anymore. So.
Okay. Oh, and then speaking of gaming, it's like I don't want to walled gardens or whatnot, but Facebook is what. So I went to VidCon, which is my first year. We went to the creator track, and I learned a lot, and I learned nothing at the same time. So it's
okay.
I'll have to post this. I've been meaning to post my thoughts on that. But the one thing, I am not a video celebrity, but I do not make money or living by posting YouTube videos, as anyone could only see. But I think their concern was with Facebook was that they make money off of YouTube with their ads, and so if they posted a video to Facebook, Facebook would I think they would slip it up.
Yeah,
and so they would not get any advertising off of that or any numbers or whatnot off of that. So that was their concern with how it's like, this is a major concern, or our platform or a livelihood. And so and there are people there with millions of YouTube subscribers, millions upon millions. People who and they're just this is a very real issue for them. So
that doesn't transfer easily. You might be able to still make the videos, but the subscribers, that's hard to.
Right.
Yeah. And the gardens know this.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So,
exclusive content. Oh, great.
Yeah. So so I think we beat this one pretty death. But I do want to ask you, since we beat the ad blockers to death, sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I just want to ask, how did you get involved with web design, with the web?
I came to it from HyperCard. Yeah. I was all about hypertext. I was actually trying to figure out new cool things that hypertext could do when I got kind of tired of HyperCard. I saw HTML. A friend of mine showed it to me, but I'd had a bad encounter with SGML a few weeks before, reading about high time in this complete crazy multi-dimensional hypertext stuff. So I came back to it a year later. I kind of lost that year. I was in New York. I worked at a publishing company as a sales assistant. I was into the web. I wound up acquiring stuff for them. It was kind of weird.
Mm.
And then I had a job. I left publishing. I had a job for 6 weeks working in Asymmetrics Toolbook. And then I fled to a web design company in Connecticut. So I've pretty much, one way or another, I've pretty much been working with the web since 1996 directly. But
wow.
I was playing with it before.
Okay.
So yeah, HyperCard was my gateway drug.
Okay. Cool. And so how did you get started with O'Reilly?
How did I? I had a couple of things going. When I was doing the XML stuff, I was friends with Ed Dumble, and we had a website called XML Hack, which would do things like break the latest W3C scandals at 2 in the morning. I only got to do that once, but it was worth it. But Ed, because of that, wound up doing XML.com, which was an O'Reilly property. And they just didn't have books on XML at a time when XML was really big. And I'd written several of them.
Right.
I was also writing a book for them. It all just kind of came together.
Yeah.
The way that I tend to tell the story, I worked on XML for them for like 2 or 3 years until XML kind of perished. Then I spent a few years in purgatory. I was editing books on Microsoft Access and Excel. I actually kind of like Access. It's a long story.
Yeah.
But then somebody else was moving into a different line of work, and they were like, you know something about the web. Could you do these books? I was like, yes, please, absolutely. That would be awesome. So I really haven't left since that happened. I've been primarily web-focused at O'Reilly for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
So, and the XML stuff was like it was still connected to the web. I was still totally into the web stuff. It just wasn't, it didn't make it on the web. So,
right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, my favorite story is of meeting you. The first time meeting you was that I was at a conference, and you came up to me. It's like, hey, thanks for talking, whatever. And I'm from O'Reilly. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. This is my first time I'm meeting someone from O'Reilly, even though I have just written this book.
Yes.
And CSS Cookbook, the first edition, and I had literally gone through the whole entire process of writing the book, and not one phone call.
Wow.
From anyone from O'Reilly. It was all email, and that was the most coolest and intimidating part of working with O'Reilly. It was like, yeah, they don't need to talk to you. They understand the web. You know, they understand email, and so I was just like, so to finally meet you in person, it was, I don't know what that year that was, like 2002.
It was pretty early in my O'Reilly career, so yeah, 2002 sounds about right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of books. I've done a lot of projects that were just through email.
Yeah.
It happens less lately. Like it's kind of odd. I feel like people are stepping back from email a little. A phone call is a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had a lot of projects where that was the case, and some where I knew the people really well, and one where I was assigned the book because the author lived on the other side of the lake from me.
Okay.
He just kept stalling. I could probably go knock on his door.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. That was about it. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Cool. Is there anything you're passionate about? Because you run you co-chair. Is that right?
Yeah.
Fluent and
yeah, the Fluent. Yeah. Well, I'm not on OSCON anymore. That's
okay.
Rachel Meliodas now.
Okay.
The Fluent CFP just closed last night. We've got more proposals than we've ever had, which is continuously a problem because we could put on multiple conferences from the CFP.
Okay.
But yeah, that I should have bigger news on in like 2 or 3 weeks when we have a program and announce things. But so far, so great.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. And then yeah. So what is so you always have what are you excited about or passionate about?
Actually, it's kind of interesting because some of the things that my audience is passionate about aren't necessarily my favorite things. I marveled at CSS DevConf last year when the question was the speakers were on stage and somebody asked how many of you use Sass, and basically everybody used Sass. It's not just Sass though; it's this whole set of like workflow tools. Grunt got things going, and there's Gulp. There's ways to integrate that with Visual Studio now. I'm kind of watching this whole front end tool thing turn from, yeah, I got a text editor and a browser and Photoshop into, yes, I've automated this system 7 different ways. And if I need it this way, I can do this. And if I want that. And then if I want to get really fancy, I can do things where I'm, processing code on the server or the client at will. And I can test that using my workflow here. Mm-hmm. It's like a whole set of tools that I never dreamed would exist.
Yeah.
To be honest, some of it reminds me of the pipelines people built when I did XML, and I didn't always love those things. So maybe I'm a little cautious. I think the other big thing that just keeps coming up is the shift between sites and apps. Mm-hmm. I can sort of simplify by saying that sites are kind of your classic designer or developer folks, and apps are more programmers. But that's a drastic oversimplification that isn't really true. It's more like the mindset you bring to building. Okay. So there's going to be a lot more on that story too. And that's probably going to play into some of the content blocking stuff too. Okay. The content blocking, we've been talking about ads, but suddenly progressive enhancement got a whole lot more important because people can just turn off your JavaScript. And if your app needs JavaScript to start, I'm sorry, you're done now. So we're gonna see some interesting stuff. Just, I don't know, spiraling maybe out of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I think it was content, and I think in some way I feel like is the users are trying to get control back, right? That's like the main impetus because like if anyone who knows me, I absolutely hate. I went to school at Florida State University. If anyone knows me, I absolutely hate the new athletics logo for FSU.
Right.
And it's because they did it without any community input. Because like we're the web. You have to ask community first before you make changes. Or anything drastic, or you do a slow bake. Over time.
Right.
Whatever. And so FSU didn't do this, and so. And they continue not to care about community or whatever. So I actually built a Chrome extension that would swap out the FSU logo for the old one, just because I'm like, because as a trained designer, at this school,
right?
They didn't, it burns my eyes. So it's just and so the fact that that a designer who's actually hired full time at FSU could actually build a better one. Not me, someone else actually did this, but it's kind of weird. Like you guys, I think this is kind of like reclaiming, trying to get back, how we see the web, and not just for something stupid like a visual logo or whatever, but just for contrast and be able to change things at will. And so, it was a really sad day when browsers got rid of author style sheets. Be able to not be able to update things and modify things correctly, so they actually see like a high contrast or for low vision impaired users and stuff like that. So
yeah, a lot of it went from simple preferences to really complicated extensions, and we just keep rebuilding things more complicated.
Right.
That doesn't always help users. So I'm hoping one big positive effect of this will be that users get more control.
Yeah.
And developers learn we've got to listen to them more.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. So I think that's about it. I think
okay.
Definitely. So when is Fluent? Fluent is March.
Fluent will be March 8th through 10 in San Francisco. There's actually a training day on the 7th, so we're using programmer counting. We have a day 0.
Okay, that's good.
But the main conference is the 8th to the 10th.
Okay, and when will you announce the lineup?
Probably the middle of October, possibly late October.
Okay.
It depends on how difficult the choices are.
Okay, yeah, so it's not that far away. Okay, cool. Yeah, nice. Cool. Well, thanks, Simon, for being part of the show.
Yeah, happy to be here, and let's talk more soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. Take care.